When you're doing fur or hair, the technique stays the same between different types of fur and hair. The tool is what really makes the difference. So I've got a selection of tools here, and I'm going to show you the technique, and it should give us some different results. So as you saw from the intro, this is just 50-50 ratio. This is these are cleaned off surfaces. We're going to do kind of a coarse fur on the first one, then we'll do a finer fur on the second, and then we'll show you what it looks like on a cape. Because a lot of people will be putting fur on capes. It's pretty popular. Alright, so the first one we're going to do is the hook. And you can get a dental hook that is really fine. This is a mechanical hook for cleaning out mechanical components. You can find it at most hobby shops. You can find it at tool stores. So let's try this one first. And we're going to get a little bit of oil on the hook. Not too much in case we wanted to add some more layers. You know, we never want to overdo it with the oil. But here's the technique. And this is why hooks are so popular and so useful. Is you want to go in and then pull out towards you. Okay? So it's kind of a picking motion like this. Okay? Let's go at it. So we're going to start with your fur. You want to start at your lowest edge, in which case that'll be this edge, because then we're going to add layers on top so that the fur kind of has some depth. Okay? What we're going to do is poke in and pull out. Move over, poke in, pull out. And if it tears like that, that's fine. Totally fine. This green stuff has been curing for only about 10 minutes. So it's not terribly stiff. It's actually pretty workable, which is good. You want it to be able to pull and stretch. Not too much though, because you don't want it to get stringy and really long unless that's the look you're going for. So really, it's good to experiment with a lot of different tools and a lot of different cure times. But let's keep going. So we'll just poke in and hook, poke in and hook, and we'll just keep going like that. Okay? And it's useful if you switch up to the direction you're pulling, right? So if you're going to do this on top, let's get a little bit more oil on there. If you're going to be doing a row this way, it might be a good idea to switch up and do the next row the other way, or midway through it, change it so that it doesn't look like it's all uniform and combed and pretty, unless you want your fur to look combed and pretty. So what I'm doing here is I'm going up, not right next to, not right here, I'm going up a little higher right there. Okay, and I'm digging in and pulling back out. What you want to do is pop some of this out so it comes out like this, towards you, not straight down, but toward you. Okay, so it would be not like this and straight down, out this way. Okay, so go a little bit higher and just pick it and pull it out. And it doesn't need to look super nice if you're doing coarse fur. Okay, let's get a little bit more oil. If it starts to stick to your hook too much, it's time to re-up on the oil. Okay, let's do another row. And you can do this fairly quick. Let's go this way this time. A little bit higher. Okay, you see how that's cutting in some layers? And of course this is very rough, but it gives you an idea of the technique, where you hook, you pull it, and you pick it out like this. Okay? So it looks like that. Alright? So that's the hook. And if you were to get a really fine hook, like the dental hook, which I don't have on hand right now, but is much, much smaller than this, much finer, the hairs would look a lot finer. They look very, very tight, close together, which is great. If you're looking for that style, it's great to have a lot of different tools on hand. So let's try another one now. Let's go to the pokey. Okay, so you got your very fine poking needle. what you can do, get a little bit of oil on there, and you're going to poke in this, okay? You're going to poke in, and then you're going to drag it out like that, okay? So just along, you're not going to pick as much, but you can do, you can kind of draw it out like this. Needles have a hard time keeping oil on the very tip, and so you usually have some sticking. I'm going to get that off before we move to the next layer. So now we're going to start picking a little bit more. So this is really long hair, long and stringy. And at this point you can start also doing some really fine work. You come back and start doing that technique where you push in and pull, right? Because once you've drawn out some length into the hair, you can kind of change it. So that's one technique. Let's flatten this one out and try some more. Okay, let's try really fine. Let's get our X-Acto knife here. What we're going to do here is do really quick and fine little cuts like this. Okay, where we're going to get in, stick in, and pull it out. And this is the technique also if you're doing hair on someone's head. That works really well. You flip the knife over, it gets really fine like that, right? So if you were doing someone's hair, you would use the back of your knife, and it would look very, very fine and thin like that. Okay, so you have a thin method like that. You have a coarse method with the hook. I prefer the hook because you can get different sizes for different types of hair, and it also is really easy to get texture and depth because you're pulling and it's yanking it out like that. You see what I mean? So you just go to the row above it. Some people do the really long, clean spaghetti hair, which can look good. I think it almost looks too pretty. So let's move on to the cloak, and we'll go from start to finish. So here we have the cloak, right? So we're going to start, let's get oil. Let's get oil on this guy. And let's start at the bottom. So we'll just pick it out like this. See that? So that's row number one. Let's switch it up. Since I was pulling from my left to my right, let's kind of switch it up. We'll move the subject this way. And a little more oil. And build in texture. Will come along the side here. So you see how that kind of switches it up? And I was going really fast on these bases, not really paying attention to my pattern. Here you can see that I am trying to draw in a little pattern here, right? It goes up like this and comes down. Just follow the contours of the fur, which should follow the contours of their subject. So if it's the fur is on top of the cape is what its base, it acts as its base and would pull it in its direction, right? So then the fur, would do what the cloak would do, or the cape, and so your motion should kind of follow that, right? And then when you put in your fur, you can comb it different ways, like this way and that way, whatever you want to do. Experiment, guys. Lots of different tools, cure times, and lots of practice. Fur is not terribly difficult once you figure out your method that you like. The trick with fur is try and stay consistent. My wrist is getting kind of tired holding this little tiny piece. And so I'm starting to rush, and my poles are starting to get longer than the ones beneath them, which is not good. You want consistent from start to finish, different lengths, so that your fur looks correct. Now, on animals and such, there are different places on an animal where, or if you're doing a haircut on a person, where the hair is going to be finer and smaller, in which case you can do a different technique. You can switch it up. But if you're going to be doing large areas like this, you're going to want to keep it mostly consistent. All right, so now that we are, oops, and I accidentally bumped that with my finger. That's all right. Now that we are close to the top, there we go. You can get a good look at it, right? What you can do now to clean up this method is you get your knife, okay? You're going to get a little bit of oil on the blade. Not too much. Flip it over as if we were doing really fine hair, right? What you're going to do is if you find any pieces where the fur is really fat and does not look right, like down in here, see where it's kind of a mess, you can actually get in there and just poke it and clean it up. And if you want to poke in and pull out to create a little bit of texture, totally fine, right? Now, we can also use this knife to get into areas where, again, if this were a haircut or on an animal, say this were going onto a leg of an animal where the hair would get more fine, what you would do is do the little fine chopping motions, right? One thing when you're doing capes, though, is a lot of people are tempted to, when they come over a shoulder, to start doing it like this, coming over the shoulder, because it's comfortable for them. But that's not how the fur goes, right? So even if you have fur on, say this were on a miniature, on this side, you would want to pull from the front to the back, because that's the motion we've been using. So you can't switch it up, or else the fur will look wrong. So anyway, let's make this look a little bit tidier around the shoulders. Okay, a little bit more oil. Here's a chunk that doesn't look terribly good right in there, right? So let's just get the knife and start defining that fur a little bit. And if you want to pull out to make that look better, you can. So just clean everything up with your knife blade. So now that I've cleaned it up a little bit, there's one last thing that you can add for a little bit more dynamic effect. When you use coarse tools like the hook, and you come in and you clean it up with the knife, you can really add some dynamic motion to it. So, for example, on this little edge right here, let's see if you can get it with the light right there, you can start getting into the loops that you made with the hook, get in with the tip of the knife, and pull it out like that. See what I mean? So that it makes it look like some of the fur is just kind of doing its own thing. This also helps if you're trying to create motion with wind or an explosion or something like that. Just get into the loops that you made with the hook, and then pull it out. This also is helpful if you don't have a fine hook, you only have a coarse hook like I do. You just get into the loop and pull it, and it actually makes the fur look finer. And you can pull it in different directions, make it look poofy, make it look extra puffy. So make sure that you experiment with different tools, different cure times, sculpt different things, and combine your tools. You know, maybe a hook and a knife, or the pin. A lot of people like the spaghetti method, Some people will even roll out really thin lines and line them up all in a row, slap them onto a flat part and kind of comb them. I think that this method is probably my favorite. We may try some, I may experiment with some other methods in the future and bring you guys along. So give that a try, guys. The keys are try different cure times, try different tools, and try on different subjects. So try animals, try thick fur, try really fine fur, try sculpting hair on characters, which we'll do in another video, but the principles are very similar. So hope that helps, guys. Thanks so much.